YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with Week 4 Power Rankings, updating these every single week. A lot of good games coming up here in Week 4 that definitely can change some things. But real quick, very important about my Power Rankings, they are not predictions. I am not predicting the future. They're updated every single week. So if your team or any team gets rolling, if they're winning, they continue to win. If they dominate, they will go up. And obviously the opposite effects will force them to go down there. And another thing, don't focus on one team. Got to compare 32 teams here. If you see one team and like how'd they move up this many spots or not move up enough spots or they move down, kind of focus on what's going on around them too, because other teams really do matter. Really enjoy making these power rankings every week. Probably my favorite video to make. Love recording the picks video. That is every Tuesday night. Also have score predictions as well. We have a Twitter. Follow that Twitter for updates on the channel and the NFL live tweet during NFL games. Instagram podcast every Wednesday night, and then the Patreon as bonus content. 60K subscriber goal. Please help us get there. Again, we got you covered, unlike anyone else here. Patreon has that extra content here, and Junior's got his score predictions. I got my locks of the week. Last 2 weeks have gone really well on those, so anybody that's following the Patreon, they probably know that. Hopefully you're putting the money on the right games there. Couch Ball score predictions, updated playoff predictions will start in the near future. It will be updated every single week. Bonus content, Discord access, much more. Also, I want to let everyone know I'm doing a mock draft after this video. So what is today? 29th. Another an updated mock draft coming in the afternoon, and then we got the picks later tonight for Week 4. Week 4 NFL Power Rankings, though. The Jets remain at the bottom. Do I have to explain myself? I don't think so. I don't think so. So we're going to move on. The Giants moved down 4 spots. They're at 31. A game, even though I picked the Niners, and I think most of you guys out there probably picked the Niners, but it's still, if you put yourself in the Giants, position, maybe you're a Giants fan or maybe you did pick the Giants. It's a game that you should win. All those guys hurt, and the fact that team's better than you, that much better than you with the guys hurt, but also factor in maybe not being prepared, warmed up, because you're a backup, and there's that many backups. Chemistry has to kind of go into that as well. So that is it's extremely disappointing by the Giants, and that deserves 31. That's what that deserves. Bengals at 30. Tough to rank off the tie, the Bengals and the Eagles. I guess the Bengals, it was somewhat okay that they tied because, you can't be happy with the tie, but, it felt like, Joe Burrow was sacked how many times? 8 times, constantly under pressure, and the fact that you tied and didn't lose that game because of what went on in that game, I guess was a positive in a way, but I didn't really find a way to move them up or obviously not down in any way, so they remain at 30. 29's the Broncos. They moved down 5 spots, and I'm actually going to reveal 28 because they kind of have to do it each other right now. The Vikings actually moved up 1 for winning or for losing, and that's really not what they lost. That's not what they moved up. If they got purely dominated and looked terrible, I just probably couldn't move them up. So at least their offense looked good. At least there was some bright spots. So that played a small part, but mainly the Broncos I felt had to move below them. The Broncos fully healthy, no doubt, I think are better than a lot of these teams you're going to see around them. But at the end of the day, they are beat up, and they showed us what they look like beat up in this past week against the Bucs. And there's just not enough offense, and even the defense, their strength is supposed to be a good thing. And it's just too beat up. So I think we all can agree that they should have moved down. They should move down here in this range. So that would really be the only reason the Vikings move up. Yeah, there was some positives from the Vikings, but that's almost a negative because you finally had some positives, and you still lost. So the Vikings still belong down here. Very, very poor season so far for them, but they do get lucky here to move up a spot, but it really doesn't matter. 27's the Eagles. Yeah, they tie, but I moved them down. That's a matchup they should win. They had 8 sacks on Joe Burrow. They played the better defense. They were the better defense in that game, I think, by far, just based on the impact they were making in the right spots, and they still lost. So it was a very disappointing, or they still tied. They didn't win. So it's a very disappointing one. It feels like a loss for the Eagles because it's a great matchup. It's a game the offense should finally get going on. They did not. They've been extremely disappointing, so I moved them down 2 spots to number 27. It's really not all on them why they moved down 2 spots. Obviously, some other teams that we saw in this range last week did win pretty good games. So, they moved up. Next, Washington football team moves down 3. I think, As we get further in the season, head-to-head's really not going to matter because there's just so many games on your resume, so many games to go off of. Upsets will happen, but still early in the season, only 3 games in. I guess the Washington's still kind of holding on above the Eagles because of that win they had on them. And having a win in general, I guess, kind of helps them in this case. So, they have looked pretty disappointing since that win, though, obviously. So they're down to 26. Unfortunately, a team that I think may continue to move down here, but I guess it depends on the other teams. 25, the Falcons moved down 3 spots. Yeah, the Falcons, I think I said this last week too, blowing that comeback against the Cowboys, now blowing that comeback against the Bears. It's a team that I want to move down even further. Just thinking about the Falcons alone, not thinking about the other teams, which definitely how you can't think when you actually do the rankings, like I said. But, the way the Falcons, lose, you want to put them down at the bottom. Like you almost want to. But they haven't, even though they're 0-3, they just haven't looked as bad as these other teams. And there are, the offense is still, without Julio, end up being without Russell Gage. There still are some good things, I suppose, when you start to split hairs with teams at the bottom. They're still at the bottom, towards the bottom, because they're 0-3 and they're blowing comebacks. And once Nick Foles came in that game, the Falcons just got completely outplayed, plain and simple, completely, not even close. Since Foles came in, when Trubisky was in, the Falcons completely outplayed the Bears. So, a game that should not have been blown away, really. They're going to move down 3 spots, though. They're pretty fortunate the other teams look really bad, too, so they don't move down. They don't plummet, I guess. 24 is going to be the Jags. Another team I kind of want to, after a loss against the Dolphins, and it kind of looked like the Jet. I kept saying they are who we thought, and they are who I thought they were, at least, the Jags. And I think that's because teams are starting to game plan for them. So it's not really a team I expect to climb. They could get a win against the Bengals this week, but yeah, they still have looked decent, in parts of their resume at times. But as the year goes on, let's see what happens with the Jags. But they are still down 5 spots. That was a disastrous game. Bad on both sides of the ball completely, so definitely deserving of moving it down at least 5 spots here. To number 24, 23 is going to be the Chargers. Yeah, disappointing loss against the Panthers. No McCaffrey. That went into picking in the game. I picked the Chargers, and I think I said if McCaffrey played, I would have picked the Panthers. He didn't play, and the Chargers still lost the game. Just not enough offense in an offensive league, and that was my knock on the Chargers all offseason, which some people disagree with me. It's an offensive league, and they just don't have enough. There's going to be some growing pains for Justin Herbert. Does Tyrod, even if Tyrod plays, does he have enough juice? Downfield, the explosive plays. And the defense has got to carry too much, and the defense didn't really play particularly that great in this game. They should have got to the quarterback more. But remember, Melvin Ingram's out. Derwin James has been out, will be out. But too much pressure on them as well, constantly on the field. But yeah, it's not looking good there after that. Well, that was kind of one that was, if you win, there's probably some hope still. Maybe not too much, but a lot. That game, losing that game, it's definitely got to hurt a bit. The Chargers are down at 23. 22 is the Texans. Yes, they are 0-3, but I still view there is some good in, they're not playing bad. They're not playing really bad. There's some bad moments. There are some good moments. Look at their resume. They've played some pretty darn good teams. Similar to some of these other teams, I think they're just still playing better ball, even though they have 0 wins, in my opinion. So that's why I can't move them down too much. They play the Vikings this week. If that game is played, with the news coming out this morning with the COVID situation, but the Vikings, none of the players actually have it, so I'm confident they'll be played. That game will be played. That's a different discussion, though. But 22 versus 28, 2 very disappointing 0-3, surprising 0-3 teams. If the Texans lose that game, they are going to they're going to drop big time with that one. So this is a big week for them. Up 10 spots, a whopping 10 spots, the Dolphins. Pretty big win over the Jags, important win to not start 0-3. And a dominant win, but they look dominant on both sides of the ball. Great game plan. Defense showed up, got pressure. They made plays. Offense worked the field, looked pretty darn good. So with other teams, falling down, that definitely helps them go up 10 spots. Maybe it's surprising to some people to see the Dolphins go up 10 spots. That's why I tell you to take a look at what's going on around them. Other teams had to move down here, but they definitely deserve to move up quite a bit for that. That was an impressive game for the Dolphins, regardless who they played. They had an important game this week, so we'll see if they take care of business here. So they're up to 21. It's a pretty big boost there. 20 is the Panthers, another pretty big boost. They went up 8 spots. It's a big win against the Chargers, where most doubted them with Christian McCaffrey out. Defense supposed to be one of the worst defenses in football. They didn't really play like it in that game. The Chargers offense a little on the weaker side, but they were pretty impressive getting the turnovers, and offense did their job. Wish they would have punched the ball in the end zone a little more instead of the field goals, but they controlled that whole game. That entire game, they controlled it. So that was impressive. So they're deserving of moving up, while a lot of other teams just had to move down, so that helped them get up that many more spots, total of 8 spots. The Lions, pretty big boost. Same situation. A lot of teams just had to move down below them, just given how, what's going on with them recently. But also factor in who the Lions beat, a team that we all had pretty high. I had pretty high in my power rankings, a hot Cardinals team. That was an impressive win for the Lions. So they're definitely deserving of moving up a good amount of spots here, 7 spots. Looked pretty solid on offense. Defense didn't look outstanding on either, but they did their part there. The secondary showed up. Man, that was kind of an impressive thing for the Lions there. So that's a pretty big win on their resume. And just coming off, week 3 here, that's where it happened. So that definitely boosts them up quite a bit. Cowboys moved down 4 spots. And again, this is kind of a good example of why or where this is not predictions. A lot of people seem to predict with their power rankings. I disagree with that. I really think it's opinion based, obviously, but I really think this is how power ranking should be done. Cowboys, I predict to have a really good year. I still am predicting that they'll get going down the stretch for sure. Second half of the year, maybe they'll get going now. But right now, where we sit, they're down number 4. They're honestly fortunate not to be 0-3. But a good comeback against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. They stayed in the game with the Seahawks, but it felt like they just got outplayed the entire game for the most part. They had to play keep up, kind of. But yeah, the season not starting off super great. So, and then fresh off a loss while other teams are winning, obviously. So they are down 4 spots. Very similar, pretty much the same situation here. The Saints, a 2-game losing streak, maybe against pretty good teams in the Raiders and the Packers there. But they are down 5 spots. 2-game losing streak does not help you in a weekly updated power rankings, and they have been disappointing on the field. So it's not like they're playing really good ball and they're losing. Maybe that wouldn't make them go down as far. But also factoring in that the teams that we're about to talk about, teams that are hot right now, teams that are deserving to go up. So that'd be a reason why the Saints and the Cowboys, who I expect to climb back up, that'd be an assumption, but we're going to see. I do expect them to climb back up as the weeks come here. Maybe. But that'll be why they move down quite a bit here. So it's weird seeing those teams in the bottom half here. 16's the Colts move up 4 spots, a back-to-back wins here with 2-win streak. Maybe not beating the best competition, but they've looked good. You can't take that away from them. They've looked very solid. Impressed with the, not turning the ball over the last 2 weeks, really. There was kind of somewhat of a fluky interception 2 weeks ago, but an unlucky one, I guess you should say. But taking care of the ball and playing really good defense. So, if they beat up on better teams, maybe they can climb a little more. So what I'm saying is maybe not the best resume, but at the end of the day, they are playing good football, and they're on the 2-game winning streak. So they're in the top half here, up 4 spots. 15's the Browns. Pretty similar situation. They move up 2 spots. It's the same thing. They're looking pretty good. They're impressing me. They're it doesn't really matter who they just beat. They how many points they put up in the last 2 weeks. That is that's pretty darn impressive. So they got to move up 2 spots here. Big game this week against the Cowboys. 15 versus 18 this week. So that is going to be a good game, and it's gonna mean a lot here. Every game means a lot with the power rankings, but that's gonna be a big one. But the Browns up 2 spots. 14's the Cardinals. Cardinals fall down 6 spots here. It's a tough loss to the Lions. A game that you expect them to win. Looking at the talent on the field and the way those 2 teams, not just the Cardinals, but the way they've been playing. Some mistakes there. Your Kyler Murray having the interceptions. I talked about in the recap. I didn't really agree with going away from Kenyon Drake in terms of the play calling there. But yeah, it's kind of a disappointing loss. It's not really that surprising though, even though I picked the Cardinals. I think a lot of us did. It's not really that surprising because it's a good team, but it's a young team that'll kind of have those bumps in the road here and there just because it's very young, kind of a fresh team. So not super surprising, but still unfortunate loss, a little disappointing loss. They're going to move down 6 spots while other teams are moving up here. But the Raiders do move down 3 spots. Played a pretty darn good team in the Patriots. They did get dominated in that game. I still like the Raiders, though. Still looking pretty good at having that, big points against the Panthers. Same thing against the Saints, beating a pretty good team in the Saints. That was the Saints' first loss of the time. But they're going to move down because they're fresh off that loss against a good Patriots team. But It wasn't really close. It wasn't really close, but I still, same with the Cardinals, Raiders, Cardinals. I think they still, I still kind of believe in these teams at this point. 12 is going to be the Bears. The Bears up 4 spots. The Bears are 3-0, and they're not too far off from like the team that are in, other teams that are winning that many games, or 3-0 teams, or the 2-1 teams. But and if they keep winning, they're going to get up there. And I do think, and this is a prediction. This would be a prediction, so this doesn't really go into the power rankings, but I do think they're better with Nick Foles, but we'll see. Time will tell, and that will move them up in the power rankings. But maybe not why they're not quite with the other teams. The other teams kind of dominated in some way, really impressed me in some way. The Bears, what's impressive is 3-0, and they did kind of squeak by a little bit, but at the end of the day, they are 3-0, but they're really not, and they're 12. That's a good ranking. But to get up there, I'm saying to get up there with the other top-tier teams, which they aren't too far off, show me that you can dominate. Wow me in a category, I expect to be in going forward, but we're going to see. So they come in at number 12. The Bears have been climbing. The Bears have definitely been climbing up 4 spots. 11's going to be the Rams. They fall down 5 spots quite a bit. They did lose to a good Bills team, and I was impressed in their comeback. What if they put the full game together? Would they have won? Where would we be putting them right now? Definitely well inside the top 5 probably. Poor start and just got outplayed in that game. But they're going to move down 5 spots, so it's quite a bit. But I still liked what the Rams have done this year. They still show me that they're a good team, maybe better than expected. Pretty good resume for the most part. But you got to win to stay up. You got to win to not move down, really. So they are down. They're down 5 spots. Number 10, Buccaneers. Rough start against the Saints. Almost expected that. A lot of new faces there. But now they're getting going here. Winning against the Panthers last week and the Broncos this week. So maybe not the best 2 teams, for your resume, perhaps, but it's a team that, definitely has to make adjustments. So really any wins, and I think in some dominating performances definitely helps. The offense is going to continue to better. I am very impressed with their defense. I mean, I called their defense being pretty good, but it actually might be better than even I had it, and I might have been higher on it than everybody else. Very impressed with that. They're up 3 spots. So this is good where they're at, because I think they're another team that's going to get better at the stretch of the season, kind of like the Cowboys, but you see the Cowboys starting on the opposite end, maybe a little different in their schedule to start the year. So the Buccaneers are up 3 spots to number 10. Number 9 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. They're up 2 spots. Beating the Jets and the Giants isn't, I guess, another one not great for your resume at the end of the day. They've won 2 in a row. At the end of the day, they had more injuries than anybody. Now the Broncos definitely competing with them for sure. They're in the same boat. And they still a dominating performance, so that deserves to move up 2 spots, whether it's the Giants or whoever it is. So they're definitely up 2 spots there to number 9. So big game this week against the Eagles. Maybe it's not as big as we once thought it would be, but it's still a big game. So, the Niners up 2 spots there, number 9. We're on to the top 8 here. We got the Patriots up 7 spots. That's a big movement there. Patriots number 8 on my power rankings heading into week 4. They beat the Raiders, a hot and a good-looking Raiders team there. That sounded kind of funny. But, they were looking really good. They were a good team, and they dominated them. I talk about winning most of the time will get you to move up, depending on what goes around you. That's why I say most of the time. But if you dominate, I really have no choice but to move you up. That's a dominant performance. Something else that factors into it. This is actually small, but I look at the resume so far as well, but a small part because it was week 1. The Dolphins win actually looks a little better now, so they got a little help from the Dolphins, but that really didn't decide them moving up. It's just kind of another thing to add on top of their dominant performance against a pretty good team, a team that was high in the rankings last week. Another thing is the Patriots are a team that really isn't supposed to be that good in general, but they definitely weren't supposed to be that good early in the year because of a lot, new faces. A lot of guys opt out, lost a lot of guys, new quarterback. It's a new system. It definitely is a new system offensively. So they're supposed to be an adjustment team. They're going to get better late, and is that going to be enough? They're already looking like a really good football team now. Credit to Cam Newton. Love to see a healthy Cam Newton. Credit to that defense. Credit to that coaching staff mainly, I'd say. I'm impressed. They're up 7 spots. They are into the top 8. The interesting debates, who will be better, the Tom Brady Buccaneers or the Patriots this year? And I really didn't think it was a question. But look at this. Patriots are ahead of the Buccaneers. That's interesting to think about here. Number 7 is the Baltimore Ravens. I did not expect to move them down 6 spots. even though the score may have seemed closer than it actually was, the Ravens, they disappointed me a little bit there. It was the best team in football, the defending champions, my Super Bowl pick for this year as well. It was the best team, but I think they just completely got outplayed. But at the positive is that the Ravens played pretty sloppy, and there was actually a point where it felt like they actually felt like, wow, they might be in this game. So if they clean up the mess, the slop, maybe they can win that. So that is the positive takeaway. But I'm not gonna reward them for that, and punish other teams that have continued to win, to continue to stay undefeated. And they did look sloppy. They looked sloppy in that game. I definitely think a really good team. You guys know I always been high on the Ravens. I like Lamar Jackson. I like Don Martindale's one of my favorite defensive coaches. There's a lot I like about that team. But a game like that, when your goal is a Super Bowl and it's a realistic goal, and you play the best, the needs kind of show. They actually have more needs than, actually I kind of talked about in the offseason needs they may have, and it kind of shows in a game like that. It won't show in a game like against the Browns, really. So I still really like the Ravens. At the end of the day, if I'm predicting, which these aren't predictions, they're weekly updated power rankings, I do think they are one of the very best teams in football, and 7 still kind of says that. But I had to move them down 6 spots for that performance, but also factoring in what's going on around them in the top 6. So you can't just focus on one team here. Might surprise a little bit of people with this one, the Titans. And this happens in my power rankings all the time. It happened last week. The Titans won their game and they moved down 1 spot. And it's not really them. Again, it's what's going on around them. You're going to see the top 5. And again, if you go out there and just dominate, if they would have dominated the Vikings, won maybe comfortably, there can't be a reason to move you down. There just can't be. So if you would have went out and done that, a game you're expected to do that. The Vikings are a kind of a sneaky team. Maybe not. They're not as bad as an 0-3 label. But the Titans have looked kind of sloppy. They are actually closer to 0-3 than you think. But I do think this is a very good team still. I was hyped in the offseason. I still am going forward. But they just kind of haven't impressed me as much as the other teams. We got to start splitting hairs here when you're talking about the 3-0 teams. So they moved down 1 mainly because the other teams are playing better football, in my opinion. They impressed me a little more. Still like the Titans. And really, ultimately here, the Titans this morning, have the COVID apparently, a couple players. So a little messy situation. We'll see what happens. But if the game is played this week, these rankings really won't matter because the winner of this game will kind of just move up and the other one will move down. But the Steelers, I moved up, who are supposed to play the Titans this week if it happens. But I moved up 4 spots. A little more, just a little bit more impressed with the Steelers. They've wowed me a little more. That defense is the best in football right now. That pass rush is ridiculous. What I really, really like, I talked about in the recap against the Texans, they stop the run first, and then they get after the quarterback. They force the team to be one-dimensional, and they do what they do best, get after the quarterback, even though maybe what they do best is stopping the run first. And the offense is looking pretty good as well. Going back to the Titans, I do really like their offense right now. It's very impressive, but almost expected. But the Steelers have impressed me a little bit more. But looking at who the Steelers and the Titans played, they haven't played the best teams in terms of the records and I guess the teams. And they've kind of, in a way, squeaked by. The Steelers did a little more than just squeak by. But some teams that have similar resumes right now, there's just more to the Steelers that is impressing me a little more. And I think even though the Texans don't have a win, maybe that's just still a little bit of an impressive win there. So Steelers move up 4 spots. Kind of a reason that the Titans moved down 1. Not really. The Titans didn't move down because of the Titans. It's mainly because who I really felt I needed to put in the top 5, who belongs in the top 5. Again, if the Titans would have dominated the Vikings, I just probably just couldn't move them down. Moving number 4, the Bills, I moved up 3 spots. Man, I tell you what, if the Bills, and this is actually a fact, I think, something I'm just thinking about now. If the Bills didn't allow that comeback, because I was watching that game, I was saying this team is dominant. This might be, the way they're looking right now, might be the best team in football, all around. I was actually thinking that and believing it, and I'm still hyped in the Bills. Obviously, I moved up 3 spots, put them number 4. I'm very hyped. I'm a believer. But they kind of allowed the Rams back in that game. That was a losable game. They very well could have lost that game. So that kind of took it down a little bit. I'm not going to okay, I'm not on the Bills anymore. And it's not like that, But if they would have stayed like that, I probably would have put them at number 2. They'd probably be sitting at number 2 right now because I was that impressed. I still am very much impressed, but they look so dominant. Why? Because the defense was flying around the field. It's not just they were getting pressure. The linebackers were playing great in coverage, or they were blitzing in the run game. The secondary was great in coverage, every level of it. But the offense. It's just, I talked about in the recap, just a wide open playbook. You don't know what the Bills are going to hit. It's almost like they're probably not as creative as the Chiefs in terms of the play designs, but there's just they're very similar in the way of there's so much where how do you game plan against a defense? Like, what are they going to do? This, they can do that. And credit goes to Josh Allen because that playbook is allowed to be that open because his abilities. And I guess he's not Patrick Mahomes, obviously. He's not playing too far off right now, but the similarities in style of play and having some similar traits, I guess, is a reason for that. So that's where Josh Allen deserves more credit. I love this Bills team. I'm all in on this Bills team. I have them at number 4 for now. Pretty big game against number 13, the Raiders, this week, so hyped about that one. Number 3, the Seahawks move up 1 spot. I do view the Cowboys as a pretty good team still, even though they're struggling. They do have injuries in the offensive line, the defense injuries as well, linebacker mainly. The defense is kind of a mess. But I still view that's a pretty good win still. The defense is very much a mess for the Seahawks, though, just not having that edge rush, Offense is very much impressive. Again, it's still a big win. I'm very impressed with that offense, but they still move. They move up 1 spot because that's a good win. They're up to the top 3. But I've actually very, very tough decision. I moved the Packers. I actually had them, even though the Seahawks did move up because they've been impressive. Just like the other teams. I actually did have the Packers hop them and move up 2 spots. I think the Saints, Cowboys. Which ones? I don't know if there's really one that's more impressive than the other. Maybe the Saints a little bit. But the Packers going to New Orleans without Devontae Adams. And kind of matching the Seahawks' offensive play. And I guess without Devontae Adams, you actually can argue to be a little more impressive. You kind of look at their defenses, which are both kind of their weakness right now, both a little sloppier. I think the Packers having that edge rush and you're having that guy like Zadarius Smith for a specific example, kind of making that big play and being able to get it after the quarterback, could make the Packers defense slightly, even though they have not been impressive, slightly more impressive than the Seahawks in these big games. And like I said, being the Saints in New Orleans, no Devontae Adams, offense looking elite. Matt LaFleur proving that he actually is the guy. And I think the Packers' issues on defense, I think are, what's the right word? I guess fixable. Could clean up as the year goes on, because I think mainly it's tackling and filling gaps in the run game. I think that's something that could improve step by step. And I'm not saying the Seahawks pass rush can't improve. It definitely can. We'll look for that. I think the Packers, I guess, is based on their play so far. But that's just an assumption. But that's kind of the difference here. The Packers have been, I guess, a little more impressive. Maybe, very little, by that much more impressive. So the Seahawks still move up because I'm very much impressed as a contender. And again, I'm not predicting. This isn't a contender list right now. These aren't playoff predictions. But I moved the Packers up to number 2. And, best team in football is number 1, the Chiefs. I did move them down to 2 last week, and these aren't predictions, so I stand by it. The Ravens had the better play, I thought, through 2 weeks, but the Chiefs prove that they are the much, much better team at this moment, even though the Ravens are a very good team. The Chiefs, the offense, it still impresses, even though it shouldn't really surprise what they're doing. The creativity, the playbook, the play calling, the how they spread out the field is the main thing. You got to cover this guy over here, this guy. Your Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a threat now. Mahomes simply is the best player in football. What he does is ridiculous. He has a skill set like none other. It's just fantastic. The defense is the impressive thing, though. Ravens moving the ball, and then they clutch up and make those plays. It's a very solid defense. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, a couple bad men in there. And the weak spot is supposed to be the cornerback position. They've been playing pretty well, actually. And then Tyrann Mathieu, another bad man to throw in that collection of bad men that they have there. But it's just all around the best team and impressive right now. And it's just, you can't even debate it. They're number 1. Plain and simple, they're number 1. If they're not number 1 in your power rankings, that's your opinion. But I don't know. I kind of disagree there. Pretty tight here in the The Ravens are fresh off a loss, so I guess you could say top 6, but the Ravens are definitely in that category. The Patriots can continue to get better. That's the scary thing, so they can make their way in the conversation with the top 6 or the 7 there, the top 7 that are in the top tier. The Niners, if they get healthier, we know they belong there. The Buccaneers are much like the Patriots. You should expect them to get better and better. The Rams are maybe a pass interference away or starting good, starting a little better early away from being up there where the Bills are, maybe the Bills being down here. The Bears just got to keep on winning like they're doing, and they're going to make their way in there, and they can definitely make their way in the conversation. So maybe there's a gap after that 12 as well at the moment, not saying like end of the year. So I'd probably put the Ravens are straight off a loss. In terms of talent, they're with the top 6, but I put the top 6 in their own category right now. Maybe the Ravens in their own category there at 7, and the next group of teams are the Patriots through Bears. So 8 through 12 there are kind of in their own category. That's just the way I look at it right now. But these are my power rankings. I really love making this one. I think my favorite video to record is probably our weekly picks video on every Tuesday night because the boys are with me and we're always making each other laugh. But I think this is probably my favorite video to make overall because I think it's pretty unique as well. And I just really enjoy doing it and seeing what happens here every single week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Please subscribe and turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing because we got you covered. We got more videos than anybody throughout the NFL season. We got you covered. And then follow that Twitter because we got you covered on there as well. Link in the description comments for that. Patreon. Also down there, the link, that is. More content there. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.